Good morning. There's Ian. Good morning and welcome to all of you who are out there in the comfort of your homes. I don't know if anyone has any announcements. If you do, type them in and I'll tell you them. Let me know, Ethan. Ian, just called you Ian. Sorry.
That's okay. And you can let them know too to start chatting their joys and concerns.
Yeah, and feel free to also chat in your joys and concerns and we'll light candles for you. The only announcement that I have is that everything is canceled. So stay home and wash your hands. Stop touching your face. Any other announcements? Well, if any come up, we'll let you know. Our opening reading this morning is from David Foster Wallace, late novelist. The only thing that's capital T true is that you get to decide how you're going to try to see the world. You get to consciously decide what has meaning and what doesn't. You get to decide what to worship. With that, I'll light the chalice. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, to serve human needs, and to help one another. Our first concern is for Sue Roberts' daughter in Virginia, hoping she stays healthy and safe.
Sue has a joy.
She also has a joy
that our doctors, nurses, and medical people caught our first case here in Sheridan early.
A joy, in case you didn't hear it, that our doctors and nurses here in Sheridan caught our first case early. Also, I have a joy for just the community that we have and how wonderful people have been and their generosity and their thoughtfulness in taking care of the group of people that I love the most, and that's our students, making sure they're fed and safe and just thought of so much and so thoroughly, and like knowing they're loved by their teachers and their everyone involved in their little lives at school. The others?
Yep, we've got some more. We've got a joy for you, Jules, from Cameo. She says, Jules, joyful for you. You're lovely.
Aw, Cameo, you're the sweetest.
Matt Egging has a joy for our outdoor spaces.
Nice. And thank you to Grace. I'm grateful for Grace and Ian. Grace just handed me her phone that has your joys and concerns. So Matt has a joy for our outdoor spaces, which, yeah, seriously, amen to that. That is so important right now.
Do we have other joys and concerns? You don't find it?
Okay. I will light one more candle for joys and concerns felt but not expressed. Okay. So next I'll read you a little story for all ages. Oh, wait.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, Robert sent a thing. He wanted to share an idea that started in Italy, Spain, and Israel. A minute of clapping hands in honor of the health workers. So this would be virtual 3 seconds. So if you wanted, we can all clap our hands. And then Doug, Doug Andrews, hey Doug, is sharing a joy for technology that keeps us connected when we're so far away. Yeah.
That's great.
And should we clap for our health workers?
Sure, let's applaud our health workers
Yay,
together.
health workers.
Hey, thank you, health workers.
audience is, but all right. Our story for all ages is a Lakota creation story. There was another world before this one, but the people of that world did not behave themselves. Displeased, the Great Spirit set out to make a new world. He sang several songs to bring rain, which poured stronger with each song. As he sang the fourth song, the earth split apart and water gushed up through the many cracks, causing a flood. By the time the rain stopped, only Kangi, the crow, survived. Kangi pleaded with the Great Spirit to make him a new place to rest. So the Great Spirit decided the time had come to make his new world. From a huge bag, which contained all types of animals and birds, the Great Spirit selected 4 animals known for their ability to remain underwater for a long time. He sent each in turn to retrieve a lump of mud from beneath the floodwaters. First, the loon dove deep into the dark waters, but it was unable to reach the bottom. The otter, even with its strong webbed feet, also failed. Next, the beaver used its large flat tail to propel itself deep under the water, but it too brought nothing back. Finally, the Great Spirit took the turtle from his bag and urged it to bring back some mud. Turtle stayed under the water for so long that everyone was sure it had drowned. Then, with a splash, the turtle broke the water's surface. Mud filled its feet and claws and the cracks between its upper and lower shells. Singing, the Great Spirit shaped the mud in his hands and spread it on the water, where it was just big enough for himself and the crow. He then shook 2 long eagle wing feathers over the mud until earth spread wide and varied, overcoming the waters. Feeling sadness for the dry land, the Great Spirit cried tears that became oceans, streams, and lakes. He named the new land Turtle Continent in honor of the turtle, which provided the mud that formed the land. The Great Spirit then took many animals and birds from his bag and spread them across the earth. From red, white, black, and yellow earth, he made men and women. The Great Spirit gave the people his sacred pipe and told them to live by it. He warned them about the fate of the people who came before them. He promised all would be well if all living things learned to live in harmony. With that, we have a moment of reflective silence. Or do we do the hymn next?
We do Spirit of Life.
Oh, the Spirit of Life is after the reflective silence.
Okay.
Right? You read the moment of...
We'll figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
Good morning. We have a short reading for the moment of reflective silence from Anais Nin. We don't see things as they are. We see them as we are.
All right. Our speaker today is Mitch Kraft. Mitch is a jack of all trades. He's a builder, a baker. He has not yet been a candlestick maker, but that's coming up this spring break. He is also, thanks Ian for the laugh. I'll assume all of you are chuckling out there. Okay, he's presenting to us today on the topic of truth, which is our theme for this month. And his talk encompasses a lot of really wonderful thoughts. Well, I'm editorializing a lot, but get ready for some philosophy and also some life experience. So please welcome Mitch Kraft.
Good morning. Again, my name is Mitch Kraft. I'm glad to be here today. Spend a little time with the Sheridan Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. My talk is entitled Truth, a pseudo-philosophical, partly political, semi-semantic exercise in explaining the impossible, with a sprinkle of UU principle number 4, or a talk in which I refuse to mention COVID-19 or school closures. Truth is problematic. In fact, the concept of truth has plagued humans for the entirety of recorded history and only seems to grow more troublesome with each passing decade. Religions, philosophies, and political parties lay their very foundations on and gather followers around the various truths on which each lays claim. Wars are fought over these truths. Leaders are elected. Economies are built, thrive, and go bust. Sure, truth is problematic on a grand scale, that is a given, but it's also confusing and nuanced on a semantic scale. There are, of course, the religious, philosophical, and political truths I just mentioned, but then you have scientific truth, also known as fact, and personal or inner truths, also known as perceptions, developed through, as Cal Furnish put it, impactful life experiences. And then there are my favorite truths, the sort revealed by great works of art, fiction, songs, paintings, revealing deep truths about society and the condition. Defining truth, it turns out, is no easy task, but everyone wants to stake a claim, because with truth on your side, you're right. Defining truth can't stop here, however, because we must acknowledge the conflicting truths within each of these categories. Two separate groups or individuals often hold truths as cornerstones of their varied existence that cannot possibly coexist as true. The Lakota creation story shared earlier cannot coexist as truth with the book of Genesis. The world was certainly never flat and round at the same time, nor are monotheists, polytheists, and atheists all correct in their truths about the nature of the Almighty. So, what do we make of truth as a concept? And if it's so difficult to define, why does it even matter? As a college freshman, I was confronted with two contrasting variations on the theme of truth. In my literature class, we read Plato's Allegory of the Cave, a dialogue between Socrates and his buddy Glaucon that lays out Plato's theory of the forms. In this story, prisoners are trapped in a cave, chained to the wall, watching shadows cast by puppets moving on the wall in front of them. The prisoners have never known or seen anything different. Their truth is generated by shadows cast by puppets on a wall. But Socrates isn't done, and he sets a prisoner free. This prisoner is first dazzled by the fire that creates the shadows, then by the puppets themselves, and finally, after he's led from the cave into the light of day, by real objects and real animals and real people. What he once believed to be incontrovertibly true, the shadows moving on the wall in front of him, the prisoner now knows to be but flawed representations of real things, of true things. Plato's allegory, of course, has some layers to it. The prisoners, it turns out, represent us, humans, who live in a flawed world where we think that we know the truth, that we know right from wrong, that we understand the nature of justice, virtue, etc. We think we know the big stuff. But Plato is saying that regular humans only see the shadows of the real McCoy, shadows of the capital letter truth, right, wrong, justice, virtue, etc. According to the theory of the forms, there are blueprints or eternal perfect models of these and other heavy-hitting concepts. And because most humans live sans enlightenment, we're unable to experience anything other than flawed shadows of what is true and perfect and real. If there's one thing to take away from Plato's allegory of the cave, it's that capital T truth is absolute, inviolable, unchangeable, not open to interpretation or variations on the theme. This was a lot to wrap my 19-year-old brain around, especially considering the contrasting messages I was hearing through the highly intellectual conversations about truth with fellow college freshmen. I will refer to the prevailing wisdom of these conversations as the relativism of the dorms. See what I did there? Yeah. Theory of the forms, relativism of the dorms. Okay, so the relativism of the dorms went like this. Your truth is what's true to you. Your truth is what's true to you. This sort of argument was commonplace among people I spent time with in college, English majors testing their intellectual wings and wanting to be respectful of other viewpoints, cultures, and beliefs. Your truth is what's true to you. I call this the relativism of the dorms because it borders on a strange sort of relativism. Relativism is the philosophical stance that things like truth and falsity, right and wrong, justice and virtue are just constructs existing in relation to culture, society, or historical context and are not absolute. According to relativism, there is no capital T truth. My freshman friends would often appropriate the relativism of the dorms to conversations about things like religion. I had friends who were Muslim, Catholic, evangelical Christian, atheist, you name it. And when discussing our beliefs or differences between doctrines, the following phrase would inevitably arise. If it's true to you, then that's your truth. I was genuinely baffled by this line of thinking. In my mind, there was no way that two mutually exclusive truths could coexist. My Muslim friend Hamid and my atheist friend Scott were certainly not both correct in their truths about the nature of God. They could certainly both be wrong, but they could not both be right. They could not both be speaking truth. Think of the contrast here. Plato's theory of the forms suggests that there is a capital T truth that is absolute, inviolable, unchangeable, whereas the relativism of the dorms goes the other direction, suggesting that whatever an individual believes is their truth is true to them. That, my friends, is some solid contrast, and I've been thinking about it ever since. So I return to the questions I posed earlier. What do we make of truth as a concept? Why does it matter? And now I add more questions. Is there absolute truth out there, or is truth a construct of societies and individuals? Truth, it turns out, is in fact a relevant topic in the year 2020. 25 years after my introduction as a college freshman, truth is still something I need to ponder as a thinking citizen of our nation and world. Truth holds relevance because, ironically, it seems to be more malleable than ever. Consider, for example, foreign interference in the 2016 presidential election. The nature of this meddling involved the manipulation of truth and wholesale peddling of truth's nemesis, falsehood. While Russia bears much of the blame for fake news that influenced American voters during that election, a group of Macedonian troublemakers were responsible for countless misleading and untrue news stories that Americans gobbled up through social media. Truth certainly seemed malleable during the 2016 campaign, likely for a couple of reasons. First, many people tend to believe what they see on social media, especially when posts are shared by people with whom they agree. Second, the messages were well crafted, masterfully formatted, and not so outlandish that folks could easily detect them as untrue. Amidst the 2020 election cycle, we hope American voters are more cognizant of truth's role and how truth can be manipulated. Less than a month ago, the New York Times published a detailed piece on how Russia is already working on behalf of President Trump this season. Our own national intelligence agencies are watching and have evidence of Russian interference. The Russian tactic will be to manipulate the truth, to exploit its malleability in today's society. And let's just dig into the term fake news for a moment. News is supposed to be truth, right? But too many Americans are consuming falsehood through social media and even the nightly news and believing every word of it. If news, which is supposed to be truth, is no longer true at all, where does that leave us? Okay, let's bring this all together. Plato's theory of the forms tells us there is a capital T truth that is absolute, inviolable, unchangeable. The relativism of the dorms suggests that whatever an individual believes is their truth is true to them. And looking at today's political landscape, we know that truth is malleable and can be shaped to develop perceptions and cement beliefs in the minds of voters. So which is it? Is there capital T truth? Is your truth really true? Is truth a shape-shifting political construct? I would argue that in some cases, truth is simply truth. In other cases, truth is opinion, cloaked as fact. First, let's look at some examples of opinion masquerading as truth. Attending church every week makes you a better person. Some would say, without hesitation, that this is truth. But how can we really know? Lots of bad people attend church and lots of good people don't. Here's another. Faith is the greatest of all virtues. But what about honesty, courage, generosity? Again, perhaps a matter of opinion. And what about this example? Liberal politics are the best for our nation's future. Like it or not, we just don't know for sure whether this is true, no matter how desperately some cling to these ideals. Liberal, conservative, these are matters of opinion, not truth. In these cases, and in many others, truth certainly seems to be relative, a matter of values more than reality. While we must acknowledge that many truths are, more accurately, opinions, we can take comfort in knowing that some things are just capital T true. Are humans influencing climate change? I have no intention of trying to answer this question, but there's only one right answer, whatever it may be. Is there a divine being or life force out there? Again, this is not a matter of opinion. There is a correct, true answer. We may argue over which faith owns this truth, if any, but there's still only one truth in the matter. Was the Earth created 4.54 billion years ago, as argued by scientists, or 6,000 years ago, as posited by young Earth creationists? Again, there's only one right answer to this question. Both groups are not correct. Their truth is not, in fact, not malleable. It's just plain old truth. So I ask once again, is truth an absolute, like our friend Plato suggests? Or as my college freshman friends suggested, is your truth what is true to you? Or finally, is truth a malleable, indefinable construct used to accomplish goals, such as guiding the actions of a voting populace? If you really stop and think about these questions for a while, you might get really upset. Philosophers, theologians, writers, preachers, politicians, and scientists have devoted their entire careers to finding the truth, explaining the truth, and sharing the truth with fellow humans. But sometimes I just have to wonder about the value of defining what's really true. This is likely why I take so much comfort in the fourth principle of Unitarianism, the free and responsible search for truth and meaning. Unlike most faith communities or religions, who genuinely believe they have identified capital T truth, Unitarians turn their focus to the search for truth, to the journey. Unitarian Reverend Paige Getty writes that, quote, as a faith tradition, Unitarian Universalism makes sacred the right and responsibility to engage in this free and responsible quest as an act of religious devotion. Institutionally, we have left open the questions of what truth and meaning are, acknowledging that mindful people will, in every age, discover new insights, end quote. In most faith traditions, followers are encouraged to bow to a singular truth as an essential act of devotion. But Reverend Getty boldly suggests that the quest itself is the act of devotion. The search is what matters. So maybe life is less about identifying truth or understanding the nature of truth, and more about the search, about being comfortable in a place where we know truth exists, but we lack access to understanding it. This is what is unique about Unitarianism, valuing the quest for meaning and truth over meaning and truth themselves. This tells us there's no need to be an absolutist or a relativist or even worry that we don't have all the right answers. Instead, we need to focus on the act of exploring truth and being open to the possibilities and mysteries around us. In closing, I'll leave you with two thoughts, insights to chew on in your search for truth and meaning. First, on Ash Wednesday, my wife and I were talking with a friend who serves as assistant pastor of a local Christian church. She asked him what he was giving up for Lent. His reply was astonishing and profound. He said, "I'm giving up being right for Lent. People need to stop thinking they're right all the time." Think about that. Second, in his 2005 commencement speech at Kenyon College, David Foster Wallace said, "A huge percentage of the stuff that I tend to be automatically certain of it turns out, totally wrong and diluted." I keep this quote on the wall of my office as a reminder that truth and certainty are problematic, that I don't have all the answers, that none of us do. Life, in fact, is not about knowing the truth. Life is about the journey, the search, the worshipful act of being open to all that is possible in this amazing world we call home. Thank you.
Thank you, Mitch.
Join us for Blue Boat Home.
Oh, below me I feel no motion, standing on these mountains and plains, far away from the rolling ocean. Still my dry land heart can sing. I've been sailing all my life now, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue home.
High tech.
Sun, my sail, and moon, my rudder, as I ply the starry sea, leaning over the edge in wonder, casting questions into the deep. Drifting here with my ship's companions, all we kindred pilgrim souls, making our way by the lights of the heavens in our beautiful blue boat home. I give thanks to the waves upholding me, hail the great winds urging me on. Greet the infinite sea before me, sing the sky my sailor's song. I was born upon the fathoms, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home. Blue bowl.
So we'd love to have a lively discussion, and we can do part of that on the chat. I'm also going to chat in my phone number. So if you would like to be heard with your comment, and if you feel like you will be better able to make your comment or ask your question audibly, orally, then by all means call me, and we can plug you into the sound system, and we'll hear your question that way. So it's 307-461-7403, and feel free to call me. And if it's if we're not answering, that means someone else is probably on the line. Okay.
We only have a few things to get us started.
We do have a few things to get us started. So
Go ahead, Richie. Yeah.
okay, he's got that. Great.
Hello. So we have a couple comments / questions on the chat. I am not great with the phones, but I will try my hardest to deal with this. So first, Victor Asher says, you make a good case for humility in the search for truth. Would you please comment further on how, in the face of relativism, we can still be faithful and spiritual? I would not claim to be any sort of expert in relativism, so that will limit my response. But I do believe that, well, my understanding of relativism sort of squashes the idea of mystery, that there's something out there that's beyond understanding, and sort of places those things that we don't understand in the realm of made up constructs by humans that are designed to achieve some end or organize our societies. I truly believe that there are things beyond our comprehension, things we just don't understand. And that's why I find it to be easy to be faithful and spiritual, and to the fourth principle of Unitarianism, because humans, for as long as anyone can remember, have been searching for meaning, have been looking for truth and trying to explain it. And I guess I've decided over the years that I take greater comfort in the search than I do in trying to claim any real understanding. So again, relativism, I believe to a degree, tries to ignore the mysteries, and that searching for those mysteries is helpful in achieving faith and a spiritual way of living. Here is a comment from Cameo. She says, thank you for speaking, also for sharing what that pastor was giving up for Lent. It is okay to say, I don't know, and be comfortable with that. Yes, it is. And I'm just going to reiterate what he said, because I think it's powerful. When asked what he was giving up for Lent, he said, I'm giving up being right for Lent. People need to stop thinking they're right all the time. And if anyone else has any questions or comments, submit them soon, please. Ian.
So I have a comment and kind of a question. I meet with some middle schoolers online. They're Chinese students and their English is really good. So we're now at the point where we can talk about all kinds of things. And I was pleasantly surprised this morning when my student said, I want to talk about morality. I thought, well, how interesting, you know, and definitely there are some big differences between how Chinese people view like ethics and morality as opposed to how we do here in the, you know, capital W West, whatever that is. But we had a neat conversation about it. And I guess my question is, if some belief about what's true doesn't pertain to morality, does that even really matter? Does it only matter, like actually matter to us as living beings when it does become a moral question about right and wrong?
Okay, that's complicated. So my simple response would be that I believe it's a mistake to try and connect morality to a set of beliefs. I don't think that's what morality is. Whether you believe in, this religion, that religion, whatever. I think morality really simply comes down to how we treat our fellow human beings and the decisions that we make in how we interact with people. And so I'm just going to take it back to one of the principles of the Unitarian Church, which is valuing the inherent worth and dignity of all humans, no matter who they are, where they're from. Because I think if you do value that and your actions align with that, then you're working on a moral approach. But again, trying to attach morality to the thousands of different belief systems and claim that one of them is right over the others is just an impossible task. So I'd bring it back to how we interact with and treat our fellow man.
I have a text message here from Kabira Hartwig. She's in California at the moment. She just wanted to say that she and Chuck got to tune in from California and they appreciated your talk. She wants to know if you can share it on the website, but she also gave her email and she wants everyone to know that they are fine there and they're hunkering down, getting ready for their virtual service, which is in an hour. So, and she and Chuck both send their love. So that's for everybody and also to you. So thank you.
Yes, I will send my talk to someone who knows how to post it.
Okay. That'll be Ramona.
Yeah, so this talk should stay posted on my little tiny YouTube channel, and we should be able to have a link to it on our Sheridan Fellowship website. We've got a comment from Ramona here that says, if you'd like to help keep the lights on and the Wi-Fi available at the UUFS here in Sheridan, send a contribution by check to Ramona Stein, 1590 Sugarland Drive. She's her on the board. And you can make the check to UUFS. So thanks for that, Ramona. I appreciate that.
Can I make a comment?
Please.
Since there's four of us here. I just want to say about your talk, Mitch, it had me thinking about binary thinking and how that's something that I think about a lot. And in this context of like trying not to be right or trying not to think that I'm right. And there was a point at which you talked about absolutism versus relativism and the idea that even within that becomes a binary. If you begin to think too much that like, right, the relativism of the dorms, or what was it? I feel like maybe I'm stuck in the dorms too often, and to come to evolve a little bit and to understand that even that is a spectrum or whatever, right? Even that has some gray area in between those two polar opposites almost. So
I appreciate that, Grace. I sometimes think that maybe our human brains, or maybe just the way language works, forces us into various binary positions or binary thinking or binary modes where we look at things as like, it's either this or this. I mean, even our political structure in America is a binary system, right? Mm-hmm. You really have two choices on who to vote for. And again, maybe it's just the way that the English language works. And the way it forms our thinking that puts us there, but it's very limiting, honestly. And it often puts us in a place as humans where we have to decide whether something is either right or wrong. And I think that's what you're saying. It's the world, and I believe, the powers beyond our understanding and control are just more complicated than just having two choices all the time. Mm-hmm. Right. Thank you for saying that. Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Thank you, everybody.
Any other comments?
Going
Oh,
on.
here, Amy Andrews says, I'm thinking about the difference between truth, quote unquote truth, and quote unquote reality. How would you compare and contrast these two ideas? Thanks, Amy. That's a great
Just say you
question.
don't.
You thought you were off the hook, Mitch, but one more.
Yeah, Amy, that's really complicated. I don't know. I would really have to think about that. Because people. I've been thinking about this this kind of quote or this saying that I've heard a number of times, where someone would say, "Well, perception is reality. You know, whatever someone perceives, that's real to them." And I think that that's really interesting, and because you could also say, well, perception is truth, right? I have no idea whether I'm answering your question or not. I'm just talking. But perception is reality. I don't think that is really accurate. What someone perceives, they might believe to be true, but that doesn't make it actually true, because they, all humans think things that aren't true all the time. So I don't know. I think it's a really interesting thing to unpack, to ask, what is the difference between truth and reality? Definitely worth exploring. And that's my way of not answering your question.
I have a comment about that, though.
Okay.
Yeah, I should come up here. Well, this is just to respond to you, Mitch. Sorry. And maybe partly to Amy. And I'm going to illustrate it with a story. One time, Emmett and Henry, it was like a number of years ago. I think Emmett was only 2 or 3. Henry came to me and said, "Emmett hit me." And I said, "Why did you hit Henry?" And he goes, "Because he hit me back." And it's like
Wait.
some weird mind judo going on with the kid. And so Emmett had clearly hit Henry first, but his experience was like what was true to Emmett at that moment, what was reality, was Henry hit me back. So I was justified in hitting him in the first place.
Interesting.
And so at age 2 or 3, he was really messing with my mind. But like you said, perception is reality. Whatever that little human was experiencing was what really resounded with him. And so who is to say, what's the difference between truth and reality? It's all about your experience in the world, is that you build the construct of truth based off of your experience in interacting with the world and with other people. Anyway, why did you hit Henry? Because he hit me back.
I like that.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Okay, so here's my final thought on this topic. 2 people could witness the same event and have 2 different perceptions of what happened. However, only one thing happened, even if they saw it differently. But maybe reality has to do with how people see things. Okay, Amy, great question.
Last thought from Robert.
We have a joke from Robert. Robert says he'd like to share a joke. 2 guys go to a holy man and each make exclusive claims. And the holy man says, "You are right and you are right." And an onlooker then cries out, "How could they both be right?" And the holy man says, "You're right too." Thanks for that, Robert. That's a great joke.
Yeah, that's an excellent note to go out on. Robert, I miss Robert. I miss Robert. All right. So do you want to do the closing reading, and I will extinguish the chalice after that? Okay.
The closing reading comes from Reverend Paige Getty, a UU congregational, from the UU Congregation of Columbia, Maryland. Here goes. As responsible religious seekers, we recognize that we are privileged to be free, to have resources to pursue life beyond mere survival, to continually search for truth and meaning, to exist beyond bonds of dogma and oppression, and to wrestle freely with truth and meaning as they evolve. This privilege calls us not to be isolated and self-centered, believing that our single perspective trumps all others, but rather to be humble, to be open to the great mysteries of truth and meaning that life offers. And those mysteries may speak to us through our own intuition and experience, but also through tradition, community, conflict, nature, and relationships. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. We carry these in our hearts until we are together again, virtually or in person.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us. Next week, I'll be giving a talk, and maybe it'll be on 8-dimensional truth. There we go. It won't
right.
be binary. It won't be binary. All right.
Tune in next week, everyone. Thank you all. We're sending massive amounts of love to you through the ether. Mwah. Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Bye.